Just lift it up for a second. Isn't that the weirdest way to hold a microphone?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, there are weirder ways.
Okay. Deal.
So I picked one of the neutral.
Okay.
The neutral methods, I think.
Hey, that's what I saw. I saw neutral.
Today we were going to talk about mental and emotional labor.
No, I thought we were
and
talking about
physical
patriarchy.
labor. Today we're going to talk about patriarchy. The degree to which men do not understand how their voices have been the central narrative voices and stories
Yes.
of our entire culture, and they do remain that still. Women's voices have more say than they've ever had, and the advent of social media is actually wildly helpful in most of the last 10 to 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
But that the centrality of men's experience is still the primary narrative, and the degree to which men don't even realize, if they're over the age of 30, their young lives marinated in the sauce of a primarily male-centric narrative,
Right.
and they don't even realize how much they're missing out.
Yeah.
I mean, this goes for every marginalized group. We've primarily, in the United States, marinated in a white-centric narrative.
Absolutely.
Other groups, well, white people, don't realize the degree to which they have not heard from other groups because they think the white narrative is the only one that there is.
Yeah.
But it's not. It's just the one that we've prioritized. It's the one we've given the platform to.
So I think I could speak to this on my perspective, but I want to ask you more about, like, there's a blindness to this, though. Like, it's not just that it's central. It's like you cannot see the other perspectives, as evidenced by, in this video you made. One of the topics was men aren't good at listening to women. And then people will come into your comment, men, and not listen to you about the point you're making.
Just like crazy making. It's insane. It's insane to which they don't get it.
What are some of the statements that men project in these comment sections that you see coming in? When men are trying to center themselves in a narrative not about them, what do they come back with?
Oh my God. Literally everything about what women want.
Okay.
They'll say women want a man with money, not realizing that the degree to which women are seeking men with money has everything to do with the fact that money is how people move through a society based on capitalism.
Yeah.
And number two, the way that capitalistic system penalizes women severely for having children. So if you're a woman in a heterosexual relationship and you know you're going to be heavily penalized by the possibility or by having children, and if you're having sex with a man, that possibility exists. So women aren't after money, they're just after survival.
Sure. But that kind
and the survival of their kids, and not for survival's sake. If you actually take away that and just make sure, like, oh, everyone's going to survive in the system, then women aren't looking for that.
That's what I was going to ask you about. So there's
women
men...
want to be. I want to be your companion. I want your companionship. I want your partnership. I want your friendship. I want your humor. I want you.
Yeah.
I don't want your money.
It seems
ultimately.
like I can speak for myself. I had a hard time believing that fully because I didn't like me, you know. Mm-hmm. So I see that sometimes with guys in these conversations where they'll revert, I should say, like to this conversation around protector or like what men are giving up. Like, oh, you wouldn't believe, like, you know, we are sacrificing so much for you and you're not even appreciative. Yeah. Which I think is there's something there. I don't want to discount that entirely, that men are working hard. But the reality is, like, what are you giving up? Like,
and who asked it?
And who asked?
Who asked for it? Yeah. Who is this for?
Right.
Who is this for?
Right.
Because the truth is, like, and it's so convenient for, like, industry and capitalism and corporatocracy, the corporatocracy we currently have, that men have been brainwashed into believing that their sole purpose is to what they can give to their jobs. Go to work, give their jobs. Go to work, give their jobs. And men, you could tell, have internalized this at a core level. Because when you ask men what their brains to say, like, well, I have a job. I go to work every day. I work 40 hours a week. I work 50 hours a week. In fact, it's like more manly the more hours you're putting in. I go to work 70 hours a week. I mean, you just said something brilliant before we got on camera, was that, like, men are trying to maintain the health of their family.
Yes. No, I was saying that work in this particular culture here in the U.S. has mixed these things up, I think, quite purposefully, like for people in power, right? So you hear men a lot say, you know, that I'm here to provide and protect. We don't ask ourselves, protect from who necessarily, but the provide part, let's just think about that for a second.
Or what protection really is.
Or what that even is. So we can go down that road in a second.
Yeah.
But on the provide part, it's not just going to work. I think it's easy to think that men are associating our own identities and our own value with what we do. And that's clearly true. But it's also tied up in this other piece that, like, really in this country, you don't really get healthcare without a job.
Yeah, so like you're providing health.
Yes, yeah. So
to your family.
So that's easy for men, I think, to get that confused. Like, well, if I'm not doing this, then my family is out of resources in a really important key way, but those things should have been tied together.
No,
and in many places they aren't.
No, they're not. And where they're not, people are happier.
And they are happier.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah. So it's kind of like a men's right issue.
Yes,
Universal healthcare.
Yes,
it's an everyone's issue, but the idea that somehow people are just using men for their work, you're like,
right.
no. Actually, if we had universal healthcare, if we had subsidized childcare, if we had paid parental leave, if we had even universal basic income for caregivers, that's a men's issue. This would directly enhance the lives of men.
Yeah. Well, we talk about a men's default no a lot, and so if you were to bring that point to not all men, but a lot of men, and make that point, they would probably counter the way I probably countered for a long time with some sense of injustice. It wouldn't be like that's a bad idea. It would be like, well, why do other people suddenly get free healthcare when I had to work for it before? I mean, you see this with like the student loans conversation. Some people are like, well, I worked really hard to pay for my kids at school. Like, what incentive do I have to keep working hard if you're just going to give these other things away for free? And they're missing the entirety of the conversation around public utility and like the public good. Like, what is the public good?
Communal benefit.
Right. And here's the
thing.
The
compound effect of communal benefit.
Yes, the compound effect of it, right?
And the way that other healthy people make you healthier.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Like, why would I want to be tied into a job because I think that that's the only way to take care of my family, without the freedom to try something else out? Like, if you don't have like healthcare tied to your work, then you can try other things. Yeah. Maybe things you might like more,
or you're more talented at,
more
effective.
But who has the incentive to make sure you don't do that? Like,
right.
Who benefits when you feel like you have to stay someplace?
Yeah, well, the amount of harm that's being done in his absence is extraordinary.
It's extraordinary.
Yeah. And
so I think sometimes men will be like, oh, you actually said, there's a comment where somebody said, you don't understand.
They said you overestimate the benefit men are getting from patriarchy. Like, I was like, oh, no, sir, I do not overestimate that benefit. I know you are being basically like, you're taking it in the rear from patriarchy.
Yeah.
And it does not benefiting you. So it's so weird to me the way men ardently defend it and hang on to it when it's so terrible for you. Mm. Yeah. And I pose the question to you, like, what's going on? Like, why, if men aren't benefiting from this, why do they hang on to it so tightly? Like, why do you basically move to love something that hates you so hard and is so bad for you?
Yeah, I don't think that we love it. I just don't think we have the imagination or capacity that we can love something. Like, I mean, think about
life could be good and beautiful and better.
I actually heard a story the other day where a woman talked about her father, or maybe her grandfather, loved dance from the first moment he saw it, and happened to have parents who didn't discourage that, but put him into dance, and then became like a professor of dance. But like that whole family's like trajectory changes if the thing that boy loves is squashed. And for most of us, the thing that we started to show interest in got squashed. Like it's like a fundamental value that to be a man in patriarchy is to have your joy taken from you. Like the thing that you're not allowed to have is joy. Like, and so if that has been squashed and pushed and like, stamped on you over time, you really start to believe it. Not only that I'm not deserving of joy, but maybe I'm not even capable of it. And if you think that's true, then the only default remedy to that is to make everybody else to your same level of misery. Like, so we're not asking like, why aren't you happy in a way that says, how can I make you happy? Yeah. We're saying, why aren't you happy just accepting the status quo, that nobody's happy, just get over it, suck it up. That is 100% the message I got as a boy growing up constantly. Yeah. Your feelings aren't welcome here. They're actually not even masculine. Like you are a lesser of a person by even like thinking that. Shut up. I don't want to hear about it. Move forward. Sometimes overtly, sometimes subconsciously, but that was always the message.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. I have to say that's been my takeaway from being publicly online. Is like, if I had to make a generalization about the way men show up in my comment section, is that the one descriptor I would use is people without imagination.
Yes. Yeah, lacking imagination.
Literally, I wouldn't say they're mean. I wouldn't say they're rude. I wouldn't say they're a-holes. I wouldn't say they're stupid. I would say their number one problem is lack of imagination. And their secondary problem is they'd like to make that lack of imagination everyone else's problem.
Yes. Join me here. I won't
join
you
me
there.
Here in the place where I have no vision for a better future or a brighter one. Join me here where I already feel put down, shut down, powerless, used. Yeah. Join me here in this place. Yeah. And women are like, here's a ladder. We're pulling everyone out. We're pulling everyone up. And really, it's not women. Liberation in this country has been led by black people. Yeah. And that's like where liberation started. And then black women. And then queer people, have been shown us the way as well. And everyone has acted like somehow that's less rights for everyone else. But actually, it's more rights. We are all doing better. Yes. Because of those efforts. Yeah. And now it seems like we are not accepting the low level of misery that was given to us as the template. Mm-hmm. We are not accepting that. Mm-hmm.
I do feel like there's layers to this, though. Like, if you're in a society like we are, that has really emphasized individualism, then it's possible to view things from a scarcity mindset, like a limited pie, right? That if you're taking more, that must mean that I am getting less.
Yeah.
But that's actually the same lack of imagination they're talking about, right? Yeah, because if there's only two people in this dynamic, that might actually be true. Like, it's not like it's so far, fetched that like it doesn't make any logical sense. But if there's far more than the two of us, if we're all ordering a pizza, like the entire neighborhood, I might be able to take an extra slice, and you might not even want one. There's enough for everybody.
Right.
This is not in competition. But I think men are so used to being like drilled down into the smallest version of community that we don't understand that, like, to give somebody something else may not cost us, that it might actually like increase like, the overall happiness.
The generosity
or joy
can be more than some of its parts.
Yes.
The participation in community. And if you have more people to have your back, which is I think how women are really facing liberation. Women will leave marriages even though they'll be financially worse off afterwards. The majority of women who leave marriages are financially worse off afterwards, but they leave and they take that risk. Because most of them are building relationships. Yes. And you said something really cool. You're like, actually, that's the exact paradigm problem, is that men don't, it's the ultimate version of prison. Yeah. Because men do not cultivate high quality relationships and community, usually outside their primary partnership. And so they're in a prison. Yeah, they will not have any support if they choose to leave the structure.
Yes. We talk about this a lot, and rightfully, that women are trapped in patriarchy and it's very difficult to get out. Especially if you're trapped in a bad marriage, you may not have the resources to kind of, move on. All very, very real. Mm-hmm. But when women do like find the courage and do find the bravery, like you mentioned, they do so in tandem with other support networks of women. Mm-hmm. Like, even if they're not like robust, even if they're not like, there's somebody else helping to carry that with them. I think that so many of us men don't believe that anyone's coming for us, especially not another man. Like, there's not going to be somebody else who comes in our time of need. There might be men you can go to if you're doing well, who might give you like praise, or they might give you like some kind of accolades. But if you're really struggling, there's not a place that we've designed for men to say, I'm not okay. And for that to be like received well, for you to get the help that you need, and for other men to come alongside you and help you. It doesn't happen. So in a way, that's its own version of a prison. Not to compare it to women's, situation in patriarchy, but if you really feel like as a man, and a lot of us do, or I certainly did for a long time, that I'm not capable of even friendship or having community, then like...
Or being lovable.
Even being lovable. Like, just leave that sentence.
Well,
like,
that's the core friendship.
Yeah.
I'm worthy of love.
Yeah. Well, maybe talk about that, because maybe I need to hear it.
So, one of my favorite lessons on friendship came as a summer camp counselor. And there was an icebreaker where the activities director asked us to write down on a card, what is your favorite thing about friends or friendship? And the person wrote down on the card something along the lines of like, my favorite thing to do with friends is laughing, or laughing is my favorite thing to do with friends, which I think is such a brilliant answer. And the card actually ended up belonging to my little sister at the time. So cool to like, we had to find the person with the card, and it like the call was coming from literally inside my house. This beautiful wisdom came from my little sister. And like, laughter is it's one of my favorite things to come back to. I actually compare laughter to sex. I love laughter. Laughter, I think, is like the antidote to so many things, like just looking at the absurdities and really just having a good laugh. But laughter is like freely given. It's co-created. And like, it's two people meeting in the middle, right? Yeah. You're never, like the joke gets told, and it's the person hearing that joke, processing and maybe even relating to some whatever parts of it they do. And then laughter is like an expression of that. Yeah. So that's what I think about is friendship. It's like two people who aren't, they're not asking you to be the same. There's not sameness, but it's like, oh, it's meeting in the middle of your differences. Yeah. And then also being totally okay that there are differences, and even quite enhanced by them. Ooh. I have to say that you know me, like most of my deepest and most long-standing friendships in my life are with people who are wildly different than me. Yes, yeah. And I love them, and also we frequently laugh about it. Ooh. Frequently, and accept each other's. I mean, one of my longest term best friends, you don't know me in real life, but I'm incredibly outdoorsy. I do a lot of DIY projects. I love tools. I like working with my hands. I'm clearly not very fashionable. Whatever's happening. My hair is dirty today. I'm not wearing very much makeup. And my very dearest friend is, she has a master's degree in fashion design. She travels the world all the time, like seeking new fashions and art. She is like a consummate like New York City dresser. She has like a turtleneck and long sleeves, all black, head to toe, every single day of her life. And she looks like a petite, beautiful little ballerina, which I've never looked like. I'm built a lot more like Alana Mar. Like, that's like my body type. So, but like we're opposites, but we revel in each other's differences.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not for a single second. I look at men and I look at how you guys, I don't know.
Well, as you're talking, I'm wondering if we never learned how to be friends. Like not me and you, but just as men, and me and you early on, no, here's it. Yeah. Like if you can like embrace somebody because they don't have to give anything to you.
Yeah.
Like it's not transactional.
No.
I feel like so much of like friendship and being a boy where it exists was like about competition. We label it as teammates. Mm-hmm. Like you're on the same team, but you're still trying to defeat another team. Still in competition with somebody else.
I guess a purpose. I think there's nothing wrong with rallying around a purpose.
No, I'm not saying that.
No, not at all.
No,
and I think that can very much bring people together. I guess my question
is, how many men, especially as boys, or even in adulthood, how many of us have friends who are our friends because they are different than us? Like I don't think I've ever thought about that before. Like, yeah, and I'm not saying it has to be different. Yeah. I'm saying like the capacity for it to be different and for that to be beautiful.
I don't necessarily keep them around because they are different.
No,
it just. At no point, as we realized our differences, really we just had the joy of one another. Like the other person brought us joy, or the other person consistently showed up.
Yeah.
That's a big part of friendship. They show up when it matters.
Yeah.
And then our differences kind of were discovered as we went along, but we never saw that as a reason to count the other person out.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. You were never counting anybody out.
No, I never counted anyone out. Like I actually count everyone in.
It sounds like you counted everyone in. Yes, as a default. And maybe my problem was that I was counting everybody out as a default. A lot of this goes back to trust, unfortunately, I think. Like I have a really hard time with like authority figures. I think I'm getting better, but it's still a rough go for me because like the people
Pierce.
Or even Pierce.
I'd say Pierce also.
Sure, yeah. But I think for a long time, the people who were most important in my life or should have been speaking into my life were not necessarily trustworthy people.
Yeah.
So I think from that place of trauma and scarcity, a lot of men seem to have this default. The only people we count in are people who are safe from the perspective of we share many things on paper with, like a lot of side-to-side
like
relationships.
Tribal. Okay.
I don't know. What to say more? I don't know. What's tribal?
Well, just like you're from the same tribe, you share the same values.
Sure, yeah. And there's not a lot of like, MAGA supporters who are out there, with the people who are called social justice warriors and like just sharing a beer.
Maybe they're more than we realize.
Maybe there are.
That's where I come from. A place of hope. I'm like maybe it's there more than I realize. Just because I don't see it doesn't mean it's there. That's the place I start from, like a humility.
Yeah.
But I noticed that both in you, my experience of you, not now, but in the past, you didn't start from a place of humility. You started from a place from assuming you knew things.
Yes.
And then you also started from a place of counting people out.
Yes.
Those two assumptions are incredibly isolating.
Maybe the centrality of male thinking is that. That I have an understanding of the world, and it is the understanding of the world. So anything else you're bringing, at very best, I can do is I can categorize it as different, and now you are other. So now you are not into my circle, right? So I'm only limiting myself to a self-fulfilling prophecy bubble of groupthink. Men are not open to new ideas because there's enough people who think like me as a man to find solidarity.
Yeah, but you're also not going after those people and pursuing their friendship.
No. This is not about friendship. It's about ideology.
Okay.
Like, I don't think men value friendship as much as ideology. I think we'd want friends. I think we'd save friendship.
Horrifying. That's horrifying.
But look at the evidence. Like, do you see any evidence that men are valuing friendship above ideology?
I have no idea. I've never looked for it before, but that's just why, like, relationships are what make life worth living. Like, life on planet Earth is hard. The only consolation prize is that we don't get to have to do it alone. We get to do it together. Mm-hmm. They enhance our lives. They make it worth living. They make it fun. They make it enjoyable. They make it warm. They make it cozy. Mm-hmm. They make it hilarious. They make it comforting. They make it sexy.
Yeah.
Like, where else? Do I think it's true of everyone that, like, relationships are enhancing their lives?
Yeah, of course it's enhancing their lives. But, like, the idea that, like, relationships would be the thing that makes life worth living.
Is that true of everyone?
Yeah.
I think it's only untrue for people who have never been in healthy places, with healthy people.
Okay.
Right. So I think it's only untrue for people who haven't seen it and they don't know that it exists potentially.
Right.
But it is true of everyone. It is true of everyone.
So
I mean, it's a common trope, right? Like one of our common movie narratives is like the loner that finds a person. Why do we keep telling that story?
Oh, I think
like human beings,
is
we
huge.
tell that to each other. Right. The ultimately belonging is the thing we want listened to. When we see it reflected back at us, we long for it. We want to believe that it's just on the other side of a conflict, a problem, a disagreement. We want to believe that belonging is on the other side of it. So we keep telling ourselves that story.
I like that, though, because the other side, I think, is key. I think men are confusing. I was confusing for a long time, believing the same thing as a form of belonging, not relationship. Like, I think this was like 100% like,
I'm hearing you, by the way. I'm just horrified by it.
No, I believe you. I'm just saying, like, think about church, though. Like, I'm sure there are some healthy churches out there, but the church I grew up in had nothing to do fundamentally with relationship as much as it did with believing. In fact, the Western church entirely almost has nothing to do with orthopraxy. It's not what you're doing. It's what you believe. I think everybody wants to belong. Mm-hmm. I think that's maybe the core tenet of being human. But if you think that you can belong by simply saying words in the right order and not building actual relationship, like, wouldn't that make sense why so many men come into comment sections and like can't figure it out because they're prioritizing the words and the ideology as the source of their belonging?
I guess I have a question for you then.
Okay.
So who moved through the world in that way, where ideological sameness was mistaken for real belonging?
Yeah.
I could see in you at least a craving for authentic belonging, because I think even though maybe on the surface you believed in this ideological sameness as belonging, you still knew it wasn't authentic belonging. Like you were a person that moved to the world with like a deep craving to be worthy of love and belonging.
Yeah.
So maybe, I don't know, is deep down you must have known that wasn't real belonging? Or maybe you just thought...
the whole point of deep down. If it's deep down, you don't know it. Like, so I think I said this, that you saw that pretty clearly in me, but I would say you also saw it more clearly in me than I saw it in me.
Yeah.
So I think this is what I'm talking about, is like there's a wall between the actual thing happening and what we as men are often telling ourselves is happening. I can look back at that and think, I definitely wanted belonging, but I thought I had it. Like, I didn't, because otherwise I wouldn't have been so grumpy all the time. That sometimes when you don't want to look at yourself in the mirror and somebody brings one to you and shows it to you when you weren't asking to be seen, like, it's really easy to project the person who brought the mirror as the person enemy. Who's the enemy.
Yeah.
And I think that's what women are doing by standing up for your own rights, by stepping into your own full humanity. In this cultural time period. A wave of digital feminism where women's...
Holding up the mirror.
Holding up the mirror, yes. I wasn't sure what was happening there.
It's a mirror, just in case. That's how I mime a mirror.
What? That
wasn't obvious? It's so weird.
Yeah. But this idea that, women are facing yourselves, being brave together, like finding belonging.
Also not accepting misery. Not accepting being used. Not accepting being close to someone who devalues your time and your intellect and your body.
Yes.
Like, we're walking away from that.
So this is a huge cultural leap forward, but it's the first domino that falls that then offers the same opportunity for men to do the same work or find the same belonging. But I'm not sure that we're ready for that yet.
I don't think men believe they're really worthy of belonging. So to climb over that wall would be the scariest wall to climb, because they don't actually know if the answer is yes.
You got it. So I think that sometimes it looks like men really hate women. And I don't know that that's as true as the fact that men are really afraid of ourselves. But we don't have a place to put that pain and that confusion. So it comes out really sideways. And that's not an excuse. That's not an alibi. I don't think men should get away with that. I just think that as women continue to step forward into your full humanity, like, men have a choice to make.
Yes.
Right? And the reality is feminism...
And a permission.
I like permission.
It's not just women, by the way. Queer people, I think, are really leading this. Trans people are my leaders. Like, I am so grateful for the way we're being freed from the performance of gender.
Yes, yeah. And that kind of comes back to the beginning of our conversation, and that patriarchy is hurting everybody.
Yeah.
Right? And in fact, I don't think that you could argue it's hurting men worse than women or any other marginalized group, but it certainly is hurting us too. And I think men are so well trained, including myself, to just look for the silver lining about why it could be worse and not why it could be better.
Yeah. Ooh.
Woo!
Yeah. That's a wrap.
Right.
That was a good one to end on.
High five.
Mm-hmm.
Bye.